1998 through 2007 Jeep Wrangler power steering gearbox replacement. I'm Brian Esser from How To Automotive. I'm going to walk you through the steps replacing that gearbox. I'm going to get started by making sure the steering wheel is in a straight ahead position. Now under the hood here, I'm going to remove the power steering reservoir cap and suck out as much of the power steering fluid as I can. Now we're going to crawl underneath the vehicle here, and we're going to take off the center nut here for the Pitman arm. To make quick work of it, I'm going to use my Milwaukee M18 Fuel 1/2-inch drive impact gun here. This gun has saved me so much time and been such a valuable tool. The quality of Milwaukee's tools are incredible. Now you're going to need a Pitman arm puller tool. So you're just going to take the tool and slide it over the Pitman arm like this. Screw the nut in until it makes contact with the end of the shaft here. Now you're going to set up your impact gun onto the Pitman arm puller here, and you're going to tighten the bolt. And as you tighten the bolt, the Pitman arm may not pop off. So what you're going to have to do is take a hammer, and you're going to need to strike the Pitman arm right here on a few times, and then you'll hit the trigger again. And if it still doesn't pop back off, then you hit it again with the hammer, hit the trigger on your impact gun, and you just keep repeating this back and forth until the Pitman arm pops off. Once you get the Pitman arm popped off, you're just going to let it hang and then just kind of push it over and out of your way. So now I'm going to use a floor jack and jack it up to the bottom of the gearbox here. That way when we unbolt it, it doesn't just fall down, and we can lower the gearbox down with the jack. Now I'm going to switch over to my 3/8 drive Milwaukee impact gun here and take off the 3 bolts that are holding the gearbox over here on the side of the frame here just behind the bumper. So I'll go ahead and remove all 3 of these bolts. Now that you got the 3 bolts removed, you're going to just slowly lower your jack down and lower the gearbox down to where we can work on it. Now that we got the gearbox lowered down enough, we can get access to the 2 power steering lines. So I'm going to use an 18mm line wrench and crack the 2 power steering lines free and take those off. I'm also going to put a bucket underneath to catch the power steering fluid. When you're removing the power steering lines, you definitely want to use a line wrench. This is an 18mm. If you don't use the line wrench, it's very easy to strip or round out the fittings. So you're going to want to have a bucket ready to catch the fluid. Once we get the lines off and the fluid drained out, just above the lines here is the fitting, the rag joint fitting. We're going to remove the bolt that holds that on. So I'm going to use my little Milwaukee 3/8 drive ratchet here to help speed things up, and it's a 13mm bolt that we're going to remove. Now that you got the bolt removed, you can use a flat blade screwdriver or a little pry bar and pry right here, and at the same time you're going to pull the gearbox towards you, and it'll pop the rag joint off, and then the gearbox will be free, and then you'll be able to lower it to the ground. So after matching up the gearbox, we're going to lift the gearbox up into position, and we're going to slide the rag joint on over. It only has a flat spot, so it only goes on one way. So we'll line up the flat spot, slide it on, and after we get it on, we'll start the bolt and tighten the bolt down. Sometimes it's easier to just lift the gearbox up into position and have a helper start the slip joint. Or you can use your floor jack and jack it back up into position, and still you might want to have a helper be close by to help guide the rag joint onto the gearbox. So I'm by myself, so I'm just going to use my floor jack and jack it up in position. And once I get it in the ballpark, I'm just going to lean it in and then reach around the top and slide the coupler over. And I'll use my leg, literally I'll just reach around with my leg and operate the jack handle and jack the gearbox up higher in position. So now I have the coupler stabbed onto the gearbox, and then so I'll just rotate it into a better position and then go ahead and start the bolt and tighten the bolt up. Now that I got the steering coupler on and tight, the next step is to change out the O-rings on the power steering lines. I also wanted to point out that I put a little bit of blue thread locker on the bolt that holds the steering coupler on. This will help prevent the bolt from vibrating loose and coming back off. I'll link this up in the description, and I'll also link up all the tools and parts that I use in this video in the description. So now we're going to install the low pressure power steering line. It's going to be the one with the hose clamp on it. The high pressure line is going to be the one with the compression fitting or crimp fitting on it. The return line is going to be the upper fitting here. So you want to make sure it goes in straight, and you can wiggle and move the gearbox around to help make sure everything lines up. After you get that in and tight, then you can go ahead and install the high pressure line and tighten that one up also. Just be careful not to over tighten the lines. The rubber O-rings do the sealing on them. Now that the lines are secure, I'm going to pull out the bolts here on the frame here and put a little bit of the blue thread locker on the threads here. And like I said, this helps prevent these bolts from vibrating loose and coming back off. So once you get the thread locker on, then you can lift the gearbox back into position, slide the bolts through, and you kind of float the gearbox. And you start the bottom bolt first, and then you can wiggle the box around to line up the holes for the 2 remaining bolts. And then once you get them all 3 started, you run it in until it's snug. Now that they're snug, you can go ahead and torque them down to 70 foot-pounds. Now we're ready to slide the Pitman arm back into position, and the gearbox has master splines. So there's 4 master splines on the gearbox and 4 master splines on the Pitman arm that you'll line up. And as you raise it up into position, you may have to turn the steering wheel left or right slightly to help line up the Pitman arm. So you may have a helper inside the car turn the wheel left and right. And then once the Pitman arm slides on, then we'll start the washer and nut. And then we'll run it up until it's snug. Now that you got it on and the nut snug, you can torque the center nut here using a torque wrench, and you can torque that down to 185 foot-pounds. Now you can fill up the power steering reservoir with Mopar approved power steering fluid. I like to fill it all the way up to the very top and then start the vehicle and let it idle for a second or two, and then turn the steering wheel left or right from lock to lock. And the power steering fluid may drop, so you may have to come around, fill it back up to the full mark on the dipstick here on the cap, and then keep recycling the steering wheel left or right and let it idle for a few minutes, and that'll bleed out the air out of the system. So I'm going to link up all the tools and the parts that I use in this video, and that'll complete the job of replacing the power steering gearbox on a 1998 through 2007 Jeep Wrangler. I'm Brian Essa from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this, and I'd like to thank you again for watching.